your permission, I read. The matter for discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before the commencement of this sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. If the claim is allowed by the President of the Senate and the leave of the Senate is given by at least 1/5 of all the senators, the matter shall stand over to the next legislative day. Not more than one such motion may be made at the same sitting. Order 52, Mr. President. Notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding for which notice is required, except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present. Mr. President, I had reported to you the notice of industrial action issued by the Non-Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities and the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities. A strike that, if allowed to go or to be carried out, will impede the activities of our university, which will not go well for our university system. And you had given the go-ahead to bring up the motion for discussion as a responsive Senate that we should act so that this strike will not be carried out.
Thank you,
President. With your permission, I read the motion as follows. Observe that the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SSANU, and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities, NASU, have given notice of and indeed have begun an industrial action over a number of issues which, if not addressed and resolved, could truncate the smooth administration of public universities in the country. Knows with regret that the issues over which the two unions have now given notice for industrial action are matters that concern the relationship with the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, and the alleged refusal of the federal government to execute agreement reached with them in 2006. Further notes that their grievances also include the exclusion of their members from the administration of the National University Pension Company, NUPENCO, which is now being operated by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, and refusal to obey court orders on their members in university staff schools. Observes the allegation of both SSANU and NASU that ASU is being accorded preferential treatment by the federal government because of the allocation of 80% of funds released as earned academic allowances, while the remaining 20% was allocated to non-academic staff. He regrets that rather than accept what they were given from the federal government release, SSANU and NASU are asking a fresh demand for the release of 20 billion naira to non-teaching staff as earned allowances for 2009 to 2016 period. Alarmed that in the disbursement of the 80% of allowances to ASU members, both SSANU and NASU are already picking issues with the way and manner the money is being disbursed, with the further allegation that it does not synchronize with international best practice. Whereas the government has always demonstrated its readiness and even commitment to creating enabling environments for unfettered growth and development of public universities and other tertiary institutions. Concerned that the second term of the federal administration is still fresh, such that industrial actions or even threats of trade disputes at this time is grossly inappropriate, especially when public institutions that should treat such matters like the Federal Executive Council have not been constituted. Worried that trade disputes coming again the university system Soon after the several months of classroom boycotts by the academic staff of universities will not augur well for our university education system. Concerned that NASU and SSANU may not have adequately explored and exploited to their exhaustive limits appropriate trade disputes resolution mechanisms before they issued their last week threats of work boycotts in public universities. Conscious of his legislative and social responsibilities to the Nigerian people in times of institutional helplessness, the Senate owes it a duty to intervene where there is an atmosphere of public uncertainty in any sector of the society. Accordingly resolves to 1. Call on the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Universities to explore a resolution of their grievances by instituting productive dialogue with the Academic Staff Union of Universities and urge, that's number 2, all the federal government to engage SSANU and NASU in dialogue with a view to assuaging their feelings of alleged neglect and bring them into clarification of all contending issues as they relate to their counterparts in ASU. Mr. President, I so move.
Colleagues, Muhammad Adam Aliru is my name. I represent KB Central. Mr. President, I rise to second this very important motion, ably moved by my colleague. Mr. President, it is important for this Senate to intervene in order to avert another crisis. The universities have faced a number of crises which actually led to low standard of education being impacted on our students. It is therefore timely for this Senate to intervene to resolve the present impasse between SSANU and also us. It is unfortunate that the crisis is happening now when there is no minister in charge of labor or minister in charge of education to bring the two warring factions to dialogue. This being the situation, we should not allow the situation to degenerate. Perhaps an ad hoc committee should be set up by this Senate to intervene between the two factions in order to avert the crisis. If we do that, it will go a long way in resolving the present impasse. I therefore second this motion with all the support this motion with all the prayers associated with it. Thank you.
To commend and thank Senator Barau for bringing up this motion this morning. Clearly, though the legislature is fully in place, the executive branch of government without ministers cannot function effectively. So I support that the Senate, either through the office of the Senate President or Deputy Senate President, or through a committee, will need to move in quickly to establish a dialogue with the concerned organization to avert any disaster or untoward action in the area of tertiary education. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, my name is Ibrahim Oloriegbe. I represent the people of Kwara Central Senatorial District. I rise, Mr. President, to first of all thank Senator Barau for bringing up this motion and to support the motion. It has many dimensions. In addition to what were highlighted in the motion about the structure of tertiary education in our public schools, the effect of strike by any of the bodies or any of the labor unions in the universities will put several thousands of students into the street. And this could have both economic and security implications as well. We are just discussing about the security situation in the country. Part of the security challenges we do have is, as we've often said, is the poor standard of our education. Majority of, one of the causes of this is the incessant strike that happen in our institutions. In those days when most of us in these chambers were in the schools, we do have smooth running, we have good standard of education. And you come out with very good, well-trained individuals. But it's not it's not the same case now, where most of the people that came out of the school because of the poor training they've had, they are not employable, and they also turn to become criminals as we do have it. As such, it is very important for us as a Senate to intervene in this matter. And I support the submission of my two previous colleagues that the Senate do intervene, either through another committee that will bring the warring parties together or through the office of the leadership of the Senate to meet the leadership of these various unions so that they could tamper justice with us, if I could say, or they should not go on strike until the issues are looked into. Particularly as we are aware, as was submitted by the last speaker, the executive is not yet fully in place to be able to have the leadership in the various ministries that are relevant that will intervene. I do watch in the media the protest by some members of non-academic staff, particularly those that are the unions of the staff of, the schools set up by universities and in Ibadan and one other schools. I think they need to calm down and not go on strike. So I therefore support the motion and urge that the Senate to intervene in the
Opeyemi Bamidele, representing Ekiti Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, this is a very important motion, and I thank Senator Barau for taking the lead in this. In overriding public interest, there are some things that we cannot but continue to talk about as a Senate. And once in a while, I listen to some of our colleagues expressing frustration, well-founded frustration. We are always talking about these things. We are always doing 1 minute of silence. We are always talking about economic problems. Mr. President, for as long as there is a Senate, for as long as there is a Parliament, these issues will continue to come up. If there is no need for us to do any amendment to any aspect of our law or discuss any of these issues, there will be no reason for a Parliament to exist. So these issues will continue to come up. Today, Mr. President, I just want to address the minds of our distinguished colleagues to a very important aspect of our Constitution that is said to be non-justiciable. And Mr. President, unfortunately, that is the most important aspect of our Constitution. It is Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. This is the chapter from Section 10 up to Section 25, Mr. President, that provides for our social objectives, our economic objectives, our political objectives. In Section 11 is part of it that says the primary aim of government, the primary purpose of government is the security and welfare of the people. Mr. President, most of the issues that we discuss here are issues that either border on security or welfare, as in the instant case. And it is important as we continue to think about the need for certain summits, be it economic summit, be it security summit, it's important that as a Parliament, we have to begin to think of how we can make Chapter 2 of our Constitution justiciable. If our Constitution provides in Section 10 that the three arms of government shall be obliged to govern this nation in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution, provide employment, provide certain basic understanding, provide a good condition of service, but such a section is said to be non-justiciable. It means no Nigerian citizen can ever go to court to sue anybody for not having a job. Nobody who is out of employment can ever complain that government does not have a security system, because it is non-justiciable. And that is why organizations like ASU Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, Non-Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities will continue to have issues like this because there is a limit to which they can even agitate. We then need to come in from time to time as an intervention. And that's why I identified with this motion, Mr. President, to say that in every manner that the Senate can, we need to ensure that this pending industrial action does not take place. But in intervening between the, federal government as it is an executive arm of government, and of course, NASU and SSANU, it's important that ultimately we address the real issue, which is the fact that the most vital aspect of our Constitution is non-justiciable. Whatever it would take to make Chapter 2 of our Constitution justiciable, Mr. President, is part of what this Senate should consider as its own legacy.
Mr. Senate President, I dare say that if we keep doing things the same old ways, we'll keep getting the same old results. The issue of strike will never continue in this country unless we change our style. I quite agree with those that have spoken before me. There's urgent need for this Senate to interfere or intervene in this matter so they don't go on strike before Federal Executive Council is set up. But meanwhile, we should be thinking about a long-term solution to some of these problems that we have. It is true, and it's a fact, that the standard of education has gone down seriously, especially in public schools. And the issue of quest to get increment in salary and welfare of teachers and lecturers will be on the increase for as long as this country continues to be. Today is 20 billion. In the next few years, it will be 50 billion. And this will continue. The question now, what will be the solution outside this intervention that we want to do from the Senate? Mine will be, I think it is high time we begin to bring private spirit into public affairs. And we'll try and socialize production so that men can be paid according to their labor input. The amount of money spent in running a university, if it's properly apportioned and lecturers are meant to be paid according to their contributions or the number of lectures they make, it will be cheaper for the federal government. But anytime we come as a group and we'll keep saying solidarity, we don't agree, this will be a problem. And the standard can never be determined. So mine will be, in addition to what my colleague have said here, about that vital section of our Constitution, which is Section 2, guarantee happiness and welfare and security, which is equal to happiness. To ensure that both the lecturers and students are happy, we need to socialize production and let people be paid according to their labor input. Most of our lecturers and most of our institutions are not living up to expectation. And people do other jobs like we have now in every sector. Every Nigerian has about 3 jobs. Is a lecturer, is a contractor, is a farmer, is a this. All to make ends meet. And on the issue of the non-academic staff, it has become a dumping ground. I had this experience as a governor. For as long as every governor comes to office or every vice chancellor comes to office, he puts his relations and friends into the university. And that increasing the wage bill so much. So we have a lot of unwanted staff that we don't need in our universities. And once they get in there, they behave well when getting in. But once they get in, they become masters and join the song of solidarity. Solidarity. And without checking how much does the federal government have to support the educational system. In addition to this, Mr. President, is that we should also watch that our nation is gradually going into a currency and no capital. A nation that runs under the currency can never develop, because 95% of our income goes on payment of salaries and welfare and workshop, and nothing is meant for the development of the institution. I'm happy a motion is coming before us soon on the issue of computerization of our schools. Go to universities, you wonder whether our universities now are becoming to be primary schools or secondary schools. And very soon we shall be producing graduates who cannot speak English. So when we're discussing about their welfare, let us also tally it with the standard of education that we have in our nation, which is gradually going down day by day. So this ad hoc committee, my thing is that while we intervene, we should also remind them on the need to quickly improve the standard of education in our public schools. I so submit.
Leader of the Senate.
For this Senate to really come to grips with the central issues that have been brought forward by this important motion. I was a chairman of Academic Staff Union of Ahmadu Bello University between 1983 and 1984. The Academic Staff Union itself was created after General Gawan disbanded the University Teachers Union in 1974-75 or so. So when SU came on board, all the other staff of the unions also unionized. So the issue really is an age-old rivalry between the academic staff and the senior staff association, that is administrators, and then the non-academic staff union, who used to be junior staff in the university system. And then from there, the contagion spread to the teaching hospitals, they have their own unions, to the university teaching hospitals, other health sectors. So the major issue really is one of rivalry between the different unions in the university system. And it has been recurring all over these years. So the major issue that triggered this particular demand and this particular action was the recent release of about 200 billion to the university system, most of which was meant to address some of the earlier agreed allowances that the government agreed to pay, mainly the academic staff union of the university. Now, the major issue is this. What are the universities meant for? The universities are meant to do teaching, research, and training. All the other works of other sectors of the university are meant to be geared towards supporting this particular core function of the university system. Therefore, we should not, as a Senate, really look at this as a simple labor dispute as such. It is a question of a rivalry between the different arms of the same system, trying to blackmail the entire system into making an agenda, into bringing an agenda that supports their own particular predilections and their own particular interests within the larger system. Now, are we saying that whatever accrues to the university staff also accrues to administrative staff in the university system? They have completely different functions within the university system. Because when you do a job analysis of a lecturer and you do a job analysis of an administrator, they do not carry the same kind of weight and function, as the Professor Barau is there, and there are several of our colleagues here who have been university teachers like me. Therefore, the issue really is not one of setting up an ad hoc committee. Really, the issue is one that requires administrative and executive engagement. So the issue, Mr. President, I will face the chair, but I also need your concurrence because the chair.
Leader, I can see you are speaking as an ASU or former ASU. I was an ASU, but this time around, we need to address NASU and SSANU issues.
Is to advise that this matter be referred to the President of the Senate, who I think requires to invite the Minister of Education the National Universities Commission, the SSANU, and the NASU, and then listen to all of them so that we can know exactly what these issues are. On the basis of this, we can be able to advise NASU and SSANU to suspend their own threatened strike until an accommodation can be reached so that the issues and their grievances can be addressed accordingly. So setting up an ad hoc committee at this level, I don't think will address the issue that needs to be addressed appropriately. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. By instituting productive dialogue with the academic staff union of universities, those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Urge the federal government to engage SSANU and NASU in dialogue with a view to assuaging their feelings of alleged neglect and bring them into a clarification of all contending issues as they relate to their counterparts in ASU. Those in favor of this prayer amendment, Leader of the Senate amendment.
I wish to amend this prayer outstanding in the dispute.
Senator Jones Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Those in favor of prayer 2 as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer? Okay, distinguished colleagues, thank you. Oh, Senator Ibrahim Gobir.
Your Excellency,
colleagues, I think there is a need to clarify an issue. The issue of rivalry between ASU, SSANU, and NASU, I think at this moment is not what confronts us. What confronts us really is what SSANU and NASU feel about. And with these resolutions, we are going to spring into action, invite the two associations, the Federal Ministry of Education, and of course the NUC, as the prayer was amended to achieve, so that we address those issues. The need for us to intervene is important because we have to have a stable educational environment. We already have so much issues bedeviling the education in this country, and therefore it is important that we don't allow any strike action, because this next level that we want to reach really requires that we produce graduates from all our institutions who are well trained, because we need manpower for us to achieve what we intend to achieve. Senate Leader. Ekwa Yewi Memorial College, New Karu, Nasarawa State, who are in the gallery to observe Senate proceedings today.